Something extraordinary is happening in the war between Israel and Iran, and the pattern emerging over the last 48 hours reveals a dramatic shift in both the scale and the targeting logic of this conflict. At approximately 2:30 a.m. Eastern Daylight Time on Friday, the 20th of March 2026, which was 10 a.m. Iran Standard Time, the exact hour when millions of Iranians traditionally gather for Nowruz celebrations, marking the Persian New Year, Israeli fighter jets launched a sustained wave of airstrikes across Tehran. What followed over the next 6 hours was a multi-front escalation that included Iran's 66th operational wave of ballistic missile strikes against Israel, the first Israeli naval strikes in the landlocked Caspian Sea since this war began on February 28, and a bombing campaign that targeted more than 200 separate Iranian regime installations in a single 2-4-hour period. Subscribe to Pivot Analysis right now and turn on notifications. What is being documented here is a war that is no longer following predictable patterns of tit-for-tat retaliation, but is instead moving into a phase where symbolic timing, geographic expansion, and simultaneous multi-theater operations are defining the operational tempo. Before going further, it is necessary to establish clearly what is confirmed, what remains contested, and what the available evidence actually shows. Israeli airstrikes hit Tehran on the morning of the 20th of March 2026. India TV News confirmed that Israeli Air Force jets pounded the Iranian capital during Nowruz celebrations. The Times of Israel stated in its live coverage that the Israel Defense Forces launched a new wave of airstrikes in the Iranian capital, targeting infrastructure of the Iranian terror regime across Tehran. Iran launched its 66th wave of ballistic missile attacks against Israel. The Islamic Revolutionary Guard Corps Public Relations Office issued a statement, reported by India TV News, confirming that the operation struck targets in the heart and south of the occupied territories, including Tel Aviv, along with U.S. military bases in the region. The IRGC characterized these strikes as part of Operation True Promise 4 and stated they deployed heavy multi-warhead missiles. Israel struck more than 200 targets across Iran on the 19th of March 2026. The Alma Research and Education Center, an Israeli military analysis organization, stated in its daily report that dozens of Israeli Air Force fighter jets operated in the western and central parts of the country, striking more than 200 targets belonging to the Iranian regime. CNN confirmed in its summary coverage that Israel said it struck 200 targets across western and central Iran on Wednesday, including military infrastructure. For the first time since this war began, Israel conducted strikes against Iranian naval targets in the Caspian Sea on the 18th of March 2026. The Alma Research Center reported that in Bandar Anzali, on the Caspian Sea coast, 5 missile boats of the Iranian Navy, along with a headquarters and a shipyard, were targeted. This marks the first strike in this area since the beginning of the war. Al Jazeera confirmed that the Israeli military said that its fighter jets had struck several Iranian naval vessels in the Caspian Sea the previous day, including vessels equipped with anti-submarine missiles. The decision to bomb Tehran during Nowruz was not a scheduling accident. Nowruz, the Persian New Year, is the most significant cultural celebration in the Persian calendar, observed by more than 300 million people across Iran, Afghanistan, Central Asia, and parts of the Caucasus. For Iranians specifically, Nowruz represents continuity with pre-Islamic Persian civilization, a moment when families gather and participate in rituals that date back more than 3,000 years. Israel struck Tehran at the precise hour when those gatherings would be occurring. India TV News reported that the strikes came as Iranians marked Nowruz, or the Persian New Year. The operational message embedded in that timing demonstrates that Israel's intelligence apparatus knows exactly when Iranian civilians will be concentrated in predictable locations and that Israeli aircraft can reach the capital during those moments. Iran's new supreme leader, Mojtaba Khamenei, had reportedly planned to use Nowruz as an occasion for a major public address. Israel's decision to launch strikes during this window effectively preempted that messaging opportunity, forcing the Iranian leadership to respond to an active military crisis rather than controlling the narrative of national renewal that Nowruz traditionally provides. The Times of Israel stated that the IDF described the strikes as targeting infrastructure of the Iranian terror regime across Tehran. That phrasing is deliberately broad, specifying location across Tehran rather than a single facility. The implication is that the strikes were geographically distributed throughout the capital. Iran's response deserves precise examination because it reveals how Tehran is adapting its missile doctrine in real time under sustained bombardment. The Islamic Revolutionary Guard Corps confirmed, according to India TV News, that it had launched what it designated as the 66th wave of attacks since this war began on February 28. 66 waves in 21 days translates to an average of more than 3 attack waves per day, sustained across 3 weeks of continuous combat operations. The IRGC statement specified that this wave employed heavy multi-warhead missiles. A heavy missile in this context refers to systems like the Khorramshahr or Emad series, which carry warheads in the 500 kilogram to 1 metric ton range. Multi-warhead capability means the missile carries multiple independent re-entry vehicles or cluster submunitions that separate during the terminal phase and disperse across a wider impact area. The Alma Research Center provided critical context in its daily report. It should be noted that, according to current assessments, approximately 50% of the ballistic missiles launched by Iran toward Israel so far have carried cluster warheads. That figure is extraordinarily high. It means that every other missile Iran fires is designed to scatter dozens or hundreds of submunitions across a kill zone measured in hundreds of meters. The tactical logic is straightforward. Israel's multi-layered air defense architecture has proven highly effective at destroying single warhead missiles in flight. An interceptor that destroys a ballistic missile carrying a unitary warhead eliminates the threat entirely, but if the submunitions have already separated, the interception becomes less effective. Some submunitions will still reach the ground. The IRGC statement claimed the strikes hit targets in the heart and south of the occupied territories, including Tel Aviv, along with U.S. military bases in the region. The reference to heart and south suggests a dual-axis targeting approach: central Israel, where population density and critical infrastructure are concentrated, and southern Israel, where military installations present different defensive challenges. Israel's first strikes against Iranian naval targets in the Caspian Sea represent a geographic expansion of the war that carries implications far beyond immediate tactical damage. These attacks occurred on the 18th of March 2026, according to Al Jazeera. The Alma Research Center provided the most detailed account. In Bandar Anzali, on the Caspian Sea coast, 5 missile boats of the Iranian Navy, along with a headquarters and a shipyard, were targeted. This marks the first strike in this area since the beginning of the war. Bandar Anzali is Iran's primary naval base on the Caspian Sea, located on the northern coast approximately 240 kilometers from Tehran. What makes this strike operationally significant is geography. The Caspian Sea is landlocked, bordered by Iran, Russia, Kazakhstan, Turkmenistan, and Azerbaijan. For Israeli aircraft to strike targets on the Caspian coast, they must penetrate Iranian airspace from the west or south, flying hundreds of kilometers over Iranian territory to reach the northern coast. CNN noted the Russian dimension explicitly. The landlocked Caspian Sea is bordered by several other countries, including Russia. Russia maintains a significant naval presence in the Caspian, including its Caspian flotilla based in Dagestan. For Israel to conduct strikes in this theater without Russian awareness is impossible. The question is whether Russia allowed the strikes, was notified in advance, or whether Israel calculated that Russia would not risk direct confrontation. The Alma Research Center also reported that a vessel of the Iranian Navy was attacked in the port of Bandar Abbas. Bandar Abbas is on the opposite side of Iran, the southern coast, on the Strait of Hormuz. Striking both the Caspian coast in the north and Bandar Abbas in the south during the same operational cycle demonstrates coordinated strikes across theaters separated by more than 1,000 kilometers. Subscribe to Pivot Analysis and turn on notifications. This channel exists to read the primary sources, examine the tactical data, and connect the elements that official communications are keeping separate. When the next operational disclosure emerges, when the next satellite imagery confirms what official briefings have not addressed, the analysis will be here. The scale of Israeli operations on the 19th of March 2026 requires direct examination because it represents the largest single-day strike total reported since the war began. The Alma Research Center stated in its daily report, according to the IDF spokesperson, dozens of Israeli Air Force fighter jets operated in the western and central parts of the country, striking more than 200 targets belonging to the Iranian regime. 200 targets in one day is not a raid. It is a sustained air campaign. The Alma report specified the target categories. Among the targets attacked were sites used for the storage and launch of ballistic missiles, facilities related to unmanned aerial vehicles, air defense systems, ballistic missile launchers, and weapons production sites. Let us be direct about what this means in terms of operational tempo and capability. Striking 200 targets in 24 hours requires a functioning targeting cycle that can identify, validate, assign, and prosecute targets at a rate of more than 8 per hour, sustained across an entire day. It requires sufficient precision-guided munitions, inventory, air refueling capacity, and intelligence assets capable of battle damage assessment after each strike. The Alma Research Center noted that strikes specifically targeted the Hamadan area of western Iran, where several Iranian regime headquarters belonging to the Islamic Revolutionary Guard Corps and Basij paramilitary force were hit. Hamadan is located approximately 330 kilometers southwest of Tehran, home to significant military infrastructure, including the Hamadan Air Base. The cumulative strike data is staggering. The Alma Research Center reported that the U.S. military has carried out more than 7,800 strikes against targets in Iran, alongside over 8,000 aerial sorties. The report continued. It was also reported that more than 120 Iranian vessels have been destroyed or damaged. Let that figure settle. More than 120 naval vessels destroyed or damaged in 21 days. According to open-source assessments prior to this war, Iran's Navy and Islamic Revolutionary Guard Corps Navy combined operated approximately 200 vessels. If 120 have been destroyed or damaged, the Iranian Navy has lost more than half its order of battle. Here is the full picture of where things stand on the 20th of March, 2026, day 21 of this war. Confirmed. Israel bombed Tehran during Nowruz at approximately 10 a.m. Iran Standard Time on the 20th of March 2026. Iran launched its 66th wave of ballistic missile attacks using heavy multi-warhead systems targeting Tel Aviv and U.S. bases. Israel struck more than 200 Iranian regime targets on March 19 across western and central Iran. Israel conducted the first strikes of this war against Iranian naval targets in the Caspian Sea on March 18, destroying or damaging 5 missile boats, a headquarters, and a shipyard. The United States has struck more than 7,800 targets in Iran and destroyed or damaged more than 120 Iranian naval vessels. Not yet confirmed, casualty figures from the March 20 Tehran strikes, the full extent of damage to Caspian Sea naval facilities, whether Russia was notified in advance of Caspian strikes, professional consensus. The war has entered a phase where symbolic timing, geographic expansion, and multi-theater simultaneous operations define the Israeli approach. Iran is adapting its missile employment doctrine by shifting to cluster munitions to complicate Israeli air defenses. The Caspian Sea strikes represent either Israeli confidence that Russia will not intervene or a calculated gamble that Russian non-response is more likely than Russian escalation. Subscribe to Pivot Analysis and turn on notifications. Evidence first, analysis second. Leave one question in the comments. Can Iran sustain defensive operations across multiple fronts, the Persian Gulf, the Caspian Sea, central Iran, and its western border regions simultaneously without collapsing its command and control architecture?